Um, Hi, welcome to the HSC meeting. We all just checked in, so that's great. And now, yeah, going to just kind of show folks what I'm talking about, share a little bit, and then get get feedback and input. So why don't I share my screen, and then it can. So basically what brought about this. Make this bigger. What brought about my kind of trying to compile, what these notes are, really trying to compile like, what is going on, like what are the next, sort of what are the pieces that are here and what's the next course of action? Because, where I think we're at is that, as far as holistic systems, is that we finished, like these purpose and mission and vision statements. And, I've actually looked back at them a lot, especially when I'm, sort of writing this up and thinking, about things. I'm like, wait, what are we doing? What are we building? And then I go back and I look at those and I say, oh yeah. And it kind of like, it continues to help, with clarity. So that's really my experience with those. I'm really happy that, that we did that. And and I also looked back at like kind of the meeting notes from this year, and it was cool. It was cool to look, sort of from where we started in January and to where we're at now. And I think, what we were talking about, like in January and February was, and sort of like coming up with the collective vision, which I think we did. And then, talking about like, what is the roadmap, like what are our goals? I think we were talking about like 6 months or something like that. What are our goals? What's the roadmap? What are the benchmarks, the objectives, that kind of thing. And so, yeah, it feels to me like that's where we're at now, and so really it's just like, and that is a question that I have. I think that's what we're, talking about last week. And I think that was, was a helpful meeting last week with, with Basil and Kim and other folks, which was like, what are we trying to achieve? So like holistic systems, yeah, what are we trying to achieve? So what is like the roadmap, and I think like the rest of 2024 is a good sort of, place to, to sort of put ourselves in that map. Yeah, and really like there's this interesting clarity about like that there's kind of these two models. There's the internal value bank, and then there's like the services agency, right? And then I did that in the email. If you read, I made this little like Venn diagram, and this is just, an incomplete kind of Venn diagram, because I was thinking about like what are the things that are, the aspects of the two models that are, kind of differentiated from each other, and then, where do things, come together. So you can look at that. So basically, sort of our continued exploration, brought this about. There's also this person named Christine Francis who contacted me not that long ago, like a couple, 3 weeks ago, and we've had a couple of meetings. We're going to meet again tomorrow, and she's really interested in holistic systems and is interested in, putting in some, some time and effort, taking on, whatever roles or tasks, seem relevant and in alignment. So, so in order to kind of, work with her and meet with her and sort of share where we're at, and like if somebody is wanting to, put effort, towards what we're doing here, then I think it's good to kind of, get a grasp on, okay, what is it that we're doing? And I think that we are at that kind of choice point, really, where we're, again, the question is like, what are we building and what are we trying to achieve? So, I think that there's, right, like the value bank, which is, like the value sharing, the resource pooling co-op, all of that, which I'm calling the value bank. Right, I put in these notes, but basically, there's like there's building that, and that's where at least, sort of my focus has been. And I think that that's, that like there's a way where there's a there's a certain kind of framework and a certain process, I think, in building that. And so, then there's like this, sort of the services agency. And I put down, like, because I was trying to think of, okay, what are we trying to achieve? Because there's what Rob, like, really needs to achieve, in and of myself, right? Just like Sai is doing, and like D Studio, and like Kim is doing. We're at this point where in and of ourselves, we're having to, still, figure out how we're each individually making money. So, I kind of have my list, and then I thought, all right, well, where there's, there might be other people, that can come in this model. And really, I think that, the the main thing in this, in the service agency model, if there's going to be other people joining in, I do think that then it needs to be like co-built by, and co-coordinated by other people. So, as from my standpoint, I'm kind of starting to, niche in on this, like, business and, alignment and systems alignment, tech operations as, as a place where I can kind of sell myself. I think that could also work for, holistic systems, because it's really in the same sort of vein as, collaborative, teams and collaborative, professional services. So I think that the kind of the choice point that we have, in my mind, is like, what do we want to be like concentrating our efforts on? It could be both, but really there's only so much like person power here. And I think for the the value bank, what we're seeing is that, like, that the actual kind of returns on this, is going to be more of like in the long term. Like, I think that we're right now, we're building the value bank because we're trying to build something that we wish existed right now. So, and where I think that this could start, if we wanted to actually say, hey, let's put some effort, towards this, is to actually, like, kind of make an MVP model of the tokenomics. And I think that might start with, like, well, what's a member? So, like, a member, and this is just, kind of an idea, that I was, throwing around, which was like, okay, well, what's a member? So if somebody, says, hey, I want to be a member of the cooperative, then there's like certain, like, responsibilities to being a member, and then you get certain things. And I think that, we could make it pretty darn simple as far as, like, like tokens. We could just sort of say, hey, if you're doing, a certain role, that's a certain amount of tokens. Otherwise, if you do a value exchange with somebody, then that's an exchange. Could even start something so simple, like 1 hour, of exchange is 1 token. And then if everybody is, if there's a certain amount of members and everybody is sort of going with these accountabilities and responsibilities, then basically, you have something that you can build off of. Yeah, so I'll stop there, and hopefully that makes sense. But again, to sort of ask the question, like, what for you all, like, what is the goal for the next, for 2024? Like, do you want to concentrate on building, like, this, this value bank? Do you want to, is it more interesting to try and, like, work on, like, jobs and develop assets and work together and try and figure that out? And then, of course, I think no matter, like, what we do, there's going to be this kind of interplay. But I don't know that we have the resources now to sort of, like, fully concentrate on all of this. Yeah. So those are my thoughts on HSC. Love to hear what you think about that, or any other thoughts, or that you're coming in with.
Um, so let's just talk a bit about the value bank, about the function, um, uh, and then the measurement system for that. So you threw out like an example of like, say, one token is 1 hour. Are you thinking of 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 keep is that just for, say, like person A, but then person B would be like 2 tokens is 1 hour? Or how would we handle that sort of, you know, differentiation and perceived value?
Yeah, well, I think the tokenomics, I mean, if we want to do that, then I think that's where that expertise framework comes in. So it's just right, like on our, you did it, I did it on our resumes, sort of like if I'm at a 1 through 3, then that's maybe then I'm a novice, right? If I'm at a 4 through 7, I'm an intermediate. If I'm at a 8, 9, 10, then I'm an expert, something like that, right? So we could say, okay, well then it's for an hour of an expert's time, it's 3 tokens. An hour of a novice time, it's 1 token. Yeah, I think that there's, and I've been looking a lot at the tokenomics and how we can use the coordinate and how we can, sort of translate that. I think that there's ways to, I think there's ways to do that. And I think that we can, try and keep it as simple as possible at first. With like having a tokenomics that works, because I think that for it to start to sort of fly and be worthwhile, like that we earn tokens for what we're doing, and then I can exchange that token. It's like if I want 2 hours of Basil's time, you know, like I can exchange for that. I can call that in, you know. And again, on the other side, we have to say, okay, like each member is only responsible for, you're only you can give as many hours as you want and earn as many tokens as you want, but like you're only responsible for, you only have to sort of give 2 hours of value exchange time every month, or 3 or whatever we decide, so that way it's not like, you know, everybody with tokens is coming to Basil all month and being like, I need an hour, I need an hour, I need you to do this, so I think there has to be kind of limits on either side. And the folks from like Fliptown DAO, right? They kind of inspired me in a way, like you know, like that the Haifa tools for kind of tracking all the tokenomics aren't quite ready yet. But can we have a spreadsheet, and can each token get a unique identifier number? This is token 1, that Asaya owns that. This is token 2, Rob owns that. And then I do an exchange with Saya. Saya helps me for an hour. Now Saya is now the owner of token number 2 on the spreadsheet. I mean, we're not at this place where we have to really concern ourselves so much with like security and things like that.
Yeah.
So, there's a way where I think it can be pretty simple. I think I don't know. I mean,
But
the list that I wrote down of like what's a member is kind of like my first go idea. Like,
So let's think about the user journey for somebody coming into HSC with this kind of a system. So you come in and you have your skills and you fill out you go through the form entry or whatever, and you put your superpowers and everything on the table. Then, hey there. Then, so the user journey. So then, as a new member of HSC, let's say after you do step 1, you get some tokens. After you do step 2, you get some more tokens. So now you're a participant. Now you're in the membership. Maybe there's like at a certain point there's like an easy base fee of like $10 or something, and then you get more tokens. So then you have this bank of tokens that are then available to then get services from other members. So you can say like, I need some project management support. So I'm going to ask Newman like, how many tokens would this require to do X job? Um, and then we do like a little negotiation, or he already sort of has it established, like his valuation, per hour. And then I can like budget my tokens appropriately, you know. But then I exhaust those tokens, and then maybe nobody comes to me for services, so I'm not receiving any new tokens for services yet. So then what happens when I want to have more how do I are we going to be issuing like tokens to every member every month?
Well, the
The monthly
cooperative,
member?
I mean, at a base, at a sort of general base, the cooperative needs members to manage it, manage the operations of it, right? So there's the coordination. There's jobs, right? So no matter what, people can be earning tokens, by taking on a role. And I think that, in some respect, like every member is going to have to, be taking on some kind of role. Otherwise, like how, I don't know how it would, anything will get coordinated.
Copy. So every month, there's base operational organizational needs, that are available for people to sort of plug themselves into, and yeah, kind of first come first serve, put your name down situation, and then we have backups in case they fall through.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think we have this sort of like those, we have gone through those kind of like base kind of, keep the lights on roles, and then like what the next, steps of roles would be. Um,
Hmm.
but I think if you, right. So that's, whoa, I shared the wrong screen. Um, yeah, I think if you have, if you have these certain sort of, like accountabilities, for every member, then that does like feed into, what people are going to be getting out of it, and what people, are going to be contributing. So, it's contribution based organization. So is that, yeah, so that would be, and right. And so it's like, right, a member. So what I'm getting out of it, besides like building this thing that I want to build, the idea is, what I'm getting out of it is like, oh, I can actually like, exchange value, and I can like call in somebody's, expertise, skill sets. And that when I'm taking on a role and doing that work, I'm earning something. I'm earning a reward that that is worth something, even in, the initial sort of small group. Yeah. Newman.
Hey everybody. Hey everybody. I'm sorry I'm a little bit late. So this might give you the opportunity to sort of jump in and give me a little summary of what's going on, if that's cool. I will look at this like I was just in a discussion around identity, and it's meant to be builder identity, but we get these builders together and they just want to talk about philosophy. And we talked about like the selfish gene and conflict and guardrails and all kinds of interesting stuff. This graphic really sparked a a discussion
Mm.
uh, that like as autonomy goes up, the collaboration goes down. And what we're trying to do is bring collaboration up so that autonomy sort of, according to this, has to come down. And what I got around to is it's kind of like a game. It's like if you're going to play soccer, soccer, like you do this, like what is a member, like what is a soccer player? A soccer player has to show up to the game on time, and they have to play for 90 minutes. And they have to like try to score the goal and keep the other team from scoring the goal. Like there are rules, it's a guardrail, and it's like if you don't do this, then you're not playing soccer. And so basically, what I'm sort of, and this may be way off because I just joined, but if you want to play HSC, this is HSC, or at least a, maybe there's different tiers, because it could be, and I'm sort of guilty of doing this lately, is like, I'm coming to attend a meeting and I forgot to give my coordinate, and I'm bummed about that. But I did do a role and gave a skill share. So it's like I did some, but not all, right? And it would be like the equivalent of someone playing soccer and they just show up to like kick penalty kicks, or they just like, I just want to block the goal, and just, like I'm a goalie that just take some shots and then I get tired and I leave, and that's okay. But that's this autonomy going up and collaboration coming down, right? And so I think in order for membership, and there's great things about like becoming a member of an organization, like joining a team, and we make these agreements, like we agree to do stuff, and so it feels like this is like, oh, can we make an agreement to do all these things? And if I'm off base, that's okay. I just wanted to share. I just came from this meeting and it was like, oh crap, they're doing it right here. So
Yeah.
anyway, hey.
Yeah,
Right.
thank you. Thank you. No, you're totally on base. And really you can look at the sort of, the notes, but to summarize kind of like really shortly what we're talking about, I think is this question right here. Because this is like still the how, but I think that the primary question, for us to answer as a group is like, for the rest of 2024, let's say, what are we trying to achieve? So what do we like? Okay, like what is our goal? What? Because then if we know what we're trying to achieve, then we know, then it's going to be, I think, a lot more effective for us to work as a collective to meet that goal. And I think that there are, there's some choices. There's some good options here for what we want to achieve as a group. But I don't know that we can do all of it. At the same time, I don't know, like that, so we want to pick like, I think, it's good to have, the idea of like what we're trying to achieve, and then, make sure that we're doing that in a way that it's, achievable. Yeah.
I definitely think like trying to achieve, like a services agency trying to bring in a minimum amount of income, continue to define and redefine the offering, continue to develop more honed in services, offerings and packages. Yeah,
Yeah, right. And I looked at this, at first through the lens of like, because I was trying to figure this out, and then I was like, okay, well, what am I doing? Like, what am I doing anyways? That's the kind of for Rob stuff. But then it's like, so then what? If we wanted to expand that, what could it look like? So and these are just notes, but
yeah, I'd love, like being like selfishly sort of saying, like, I love the opportunity to do a skill share. Like that was really cool. Um, so trying to achieve is like create a system that is sustainably giving me the opportunity to deliver a skill share, and the opportunity to like go and watch, because I'm looking forward to next week's skill share from Zoe. And so that's sort of like a goal of mine. Yeah, have an opportunity to give, yeah, container to like to give and receive the Skillshare. Um uh in yeah, in a sustainable way. So it's like, yeah, like that it somehow like keeps up. And I'm willing, like I think if we're getting close to saying like, hey, look, we're doing this. And even if it's just, going from 0 to 1, I think maybe Sai and I had talked about this. It's just like, even if it's just $1, even if it's just, you know, $1 in whatever cryptocurrency that we have available, um, and like creating that pathway for the value exchange. And perhaps it happens on Coordinate, but we've talked about the 2 milkshakes. It's just like, yeah, this is a 2 milkshake membership. And then the thing for people that don't have money for the 2 milkshakes, then they're like, oh yeah, you can either pay for the Skillshare, just like, okay, yeah, it's a it's a half a milkshake for a Skillshare or whatever the economy is. But the idea being that you can earn back your milkshake by doing the container building or the party setup, in that analogy of like there's a party and people are invited to the party, but somebody's got to be there to like put out the plastic cups and make sure that the chicken salad is staying cool and not going to poison everybody and all that sort of stuff. Hang the streamers, etc. Basil's into hang. You're like, I could hang streamers. I could do the.
Well, like what we tried to start to work with like a mathematical model, a measurement model by having like people that do Skillshares receive co-op tokens. So we did
Yeah,
that with Zoe once, but like Rob said, like the usability of Haifa is not up to par yet for our sort of day-to-day needs.
hmm.
So uh, uh, so 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 while that does work, it's not that hard. It just takes that 10 minutes of time and focus to like put in the contribution. I ran a Skillshare,
Yeah,
and then there was the value, and then we get those co-op tokens. Um, and it could be that there's like some like cash value. What I worry about when we when we don't have like if we don't stick to like practical valuations for people's time, then it's not gonna work in the end, I don't think. Um, like people won't stick around.
right.
Honoring the real value, even if we're not giving them that sort of cash value, we're giving them like the
Yeah,
measurement in co-op tokens. It still means that they can see how much co-op tokens they have in the co-op. They can
yeah,
see their slice of the pie in the co-op, and they want to grow that slice of the pie by doing more services for the
yeah,
co-op. And then when there is cash available and people can do contributions that have some cash or liquid token attached to it, then they're still getting the non-liquid sort of co-op tokens, maybe 50%. So we're still getting more. So for me, this whole exercise with tokenomics is about how to get more bang for the buck, how to stretch the dollar
yeah,
with services, how to be able to, how can someone like me pour in my passion at my valuation and be able to get some measurement of that value, even though it won't be the full cash value. If anything, how to like include that passion. The coordinate exercise gives us a way to for teams, for like internal teams, to be able to you know openly, semi-autonomously, autonomously just like gift out those co-op coordinate tokens that they need to be reminded to do every month, every moon cycle or whatever. But then that way, we can tie incentives, because then the team can like measure people's passion, how much they poured into it, like Rob or whoever it is that given period. And that way, like a small team can like, you know, give out their tokens to the others, and then one of those people is going to end up with the most amount of tokens, second, third, fourth, in the
Mhm.
team. And then maybe there's like a little pool of liquid value over here that then gets distributed based upon that token, that monthly tokenomics, or that monthly. I called it back in like 2020 when I was trying to figure out how to make teams work better. I called it like the moon gift. I had that document somewhere, but it was just like I just felt like every moon cycle, like every 4 weeks, like that a given circle, with its members would then be able to like vote, who, do some sort of voting mechanism. And in this, but I like the way Coordinate works. It's soft, so you're
Yeah.
giving the tokens out, and that way that maybe that extra bonus pool is like was meant as like a bonus pool, then gets like uh, fractionalized out based upon that month's Coordinate token split or whatever it is,
Yeah.
as an incentivize, so that people who do pour in the passion feel seen,
Yeah.
and then they receive something of perceived or real value, as a token of gratitude,
Yeah, this reminds me, Rob, of remember in Grace's course, like the 8 forms of value?
Hmm.
It sort of feels like that. It's just like we need to find where, you know, if we don't have like cash or currency value, like what are the other forms that we could kind of get, like just credibility or recognition, like feeling seen, like that's a form of value. Um, uh, uh, like, uh, yeah, there's other ones that if we can make if we can make those happen for the membership, and we can increase that by like giving them opportunities to do stuff like writing the newsletter or editing the thing or coordinating the skill shares or doing all those others, which is, I think we've done a great thing by at least um, listing the roles, and that's sort of a big good step. I'm looking for that spreadsheet here at the top.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, yeah, I think that, the question for me is like, how do we, like, what are we doing now with the people who we have here? Like, how are we starting?
Yeah.
And, and for me, there is also this idea that like, to speak to the skill shares, like the skill shares, like I think that I think they're really valuable for the people who are actually doing the skill shares. I think that they're valuable for the people who attend if it's provided it's something that they're interested in. Um, but we're seeing like there's attendance is for the skill shares is getting to be very small, and
Yeah.
so and I think the main reason for that, right? We're not announcing these out, promoting them to the general public, but I don't think we're ready to do that anyways. Um, but it takes like, to me having, having a group of people who, sort of facilitate skill shares for each other, like that being like the thing is not too interesting to me, as far as like something to, spend, lots of time and energy pouring into. To me, the interesting thing is is creating like what we were just talking about, creating that group value bank and doing it in a way, that essentially that scales. I think that's the idea of the tokenomics. So right, there's all kinds of value, and giving and receiving skill shares, is one of them. And if that's something that brings in a lot of people at some point, I think that's great. But if people still want to keep doing it, that's fine. But it, you know, it should be up to the people who want to do it to be the main facilitators of it.
Right.
You know, and is that meeting like, is that really meeting, you know, the goal? And so, you know, for me, the interesting part is figuring out how to be a group of people that is, you know, like that's creating a, you know, a system of, you know, of this kind of value exchange and of this resource pooling, you know, with, to me, the intention of being able to have that grow larger and larger, you know. So that's like, you know, to basically have, you know, to take, you know, like a social movement, you know, it's just like you have like one person here, one person there, one person there, you know, or a strike or something, you know, and like that those individual people don't have much power, you know, over the current power structures. But if you get enough of them together, then you've got something.
Mm.
So that's, you know, like that to me is what's interesting.
Yeah. Guess what? Yeah. Saya, what do you think? You gotta say hi to you over there.
Yeah. Hi. I got a bunch of thoughts. I appreciated hearing about the different ways of acknowledging value to each other. I think that appreciations go a long way, and I've appreciated that in this group, that when I've offered something, people are like, "Hey, thanks so much. That was awesome." And it brought to mind for me like a role which could be sort of like the host of the party that you were describing, like someone who kind of takes on a kind of hosting management kind of role that could include appreciations. It could include reminding people to assign their tokens or to do their give. It could be that there's a subset of the email list that people choose in their preferences, that they want to be reminded about certain things or the timing of certain opportunities, or that they want to be reminded to like, hey, update your needs and offerings, and please like reach out to 2 people this week to set up an exchange, like some way of sort of engaging, so that we're not just creating the system, we're being the system on a regular basis. So those are some of the thoughts I've had so far. Another way to acknowledge value and contribution would be to give people a title, for example. Like I think we all know Rob is the founder, right, of HSC, and he could put that on his resume. He could put that wherever. But those of us who have higher contribution levels over time or longevity in the cooperative could hold certain title or certain, I don't even want to say VIP because that's not the point, but some way of acknowledging the contribution over time with language. So those are some of the thoughts I've had while I'm listening to you all. I feel excited about putting the word out to more people sooner than later. I don't think we have to have it all figured out, but it does seem like there's a need for more. It could be more people attending these meetings. It could be more people attending the skill shares when those do happen. Of course, when we're doing decision making, it's difficult to do with a lot of people who are maybe coming in new and don't have the background or the more of the picture of what's going on. Okay, and then there was another thought I had. Oh yeah, so how much of our meeting times do we spend talking and planning and decision making, and how much of our meeting times do we spend doing the cooperative? So we could be doing needs and values, needs and offerings during meetings. We could be making agreements to collaborate on something during meetings. We could be assigning value during meetings, and that I think helps us all not lose those threads when we go back to the rest of our week or month. So I don't know if somebody's taking notes, that'd be helpful because I'm saying all these things, but I haven't written them down. Thank you.
Newman is, and I appreciate him for doing that.
Thank you so much. So that's a handful of thoughts. As far as like the agency, like becoming an agency, offering services collaboratively, I keep thinking it's going to happen in some organic way where one of us is going to contact a client and find out that the client's needs are actually XYZ, and then involving one or two or three other people that we all know through HSC.
I'm trying.
Yeah.
I'm talking to clients.
Yes,
it.
you are.
I
Yeah.
got to jump on a client call like right now. So I'll be
Totally.
back
Yeah.
in
So,
15.
I mean, that's what I keep imagining is going to happen. But on the other hand, maybe we develop a short description and a few simple packages to give people an idea of what they can engage with us as, and it happens that way. I don't have any other brilliant business development thoughts on that right now.
Bye, Basil.
All right. Yeah. So, that's what I got for the moment.
Yeah, thank you. Newman, what's your time? I know you said you have to jump off kind of early. What is your time?
Oh, okay. I've got an hour, but I really need to have lunch and kind of like decompress. It shouldn't, so I can sort of hang out for a little bit longer. Yeah.
Yeah. Cool.
Yeah.
I think, yeah, I mean, I think for me, so thank you, Sai, for all of that. I think that's great. I love the meeting time. I sort of dream of a day where we get to a place where the meeting time is, we are doing like this sort of more actionable, value exchange and all of that. Yeah, for me, I think that there's a couple main things, here, which is like, again, coming back to like, what are we, and I wrote that down. I didn't bring it in on my, on the notes here, but I'll pop it in now because this was something that it was a question that I was sort of thinking about. Here, I'll put it down at the end. Which is like, okay, well, when do we sort of like go out and we promote this, to the general public? And these are the three things that I came up with. It was like, number one, when we have people reliably in roles, so that way we have responsibility for what comes our way. And I like this little word thing. It's like response - ability, the ability to respond. I think I stole that from Gabriele, but so that's number one. Number two, we have something that a person could start to use and work with, that does something, so we have a system that they're able to kind of jump into, that's like ready for them. And then, I guess this isn't the third thing, but, the third thing is like, we could just, if we wanted to sort of, go out and start announcing to the general public and trying to bring people in, that way, we just say, hey, like, this is just an idea of this thing we're trying to build. So basically, if you want to come join, you're just coming to join to help build this thing, build the thing we wish was already here. I don't know. I don't know that that's like, I don't know.
I think we've done.
But what's, like a concern for me, right, is like, especially like this number, this number one is a concern for me, right? So it's like, if people come and they jump in, like, where's all, where's the responsibility to facilitate all of that, going to land? And is it going to land on me?
Right.
Yeah. We want to avoid that.
Right.
So,
yeah.
So
yeah,
that's,
totally
those are my questions. Yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah. No, I was just thinking like that, we haven't really created the like onboarding sub circle, for example, you know, like we've talked about it, but we haven't really had that develop, you know, so that's the big deal. And I guess maybe it feels like a leap to go to the general public, but maybe it's just a reminder to myself. Like I know some of you all have invited a friend or met someone, connected with someone new sort of professionally, and they've showed up at meetings. And so that's, I guess, what I haven't been doing. I've talked about it to a few people who are really interested and think it's exciting, but I haven't enrolled them in actually coming to a meeting, or I haven't got the chance to like email them the link with more information. So maybe there's like there are just like maybe smaller stepping stones to before it's general public and we actually have someone who's marketing it or like, you know, putting it out there in a bigger way, like where we would say, wow, if we had 20 new people this month, we're ready. I totally get that we're not there.
Yeah.
There's something with like the idea of like bringing people, this party analogy, you know, like when you invite a bunch of folks and you kind of there's a very like they know what to do when they come. And right now it's sort of like we have a lot of support systems because it's like this is kind of a party that you've never been to before, so you don't really know like how to act or where to go, and and it's kind of like the flow is not sort of well known. But I think if in my mind I envision that it becomes kind of like a DAO, the idea of a DAO being that it becomes somewhat autonomous insofar as like you come and you register, and then you do the thing, and it just sort of happens without a lot of like hands touching the thing. If that makes sense. Like with the agency work, it might be a little more difficult with like the Skillshare sort of learning circle where like there's like the sign up, and it's sort of known that you just sort of come, and it doesn't, we kind of cut out the support services needed. For instance, one of the things is just like, yeah, if you do a Skillshare, I guess, yeah, I don't know. In my mind, it's just a plug and play. It doesn't require as much. We just try to cut out as much support and sort of human / Rob services around it, and that it somehow becomes more operating on its own sort of thing. And I don't know exactly how to get to that. I don't know if it's some type of web app or Discord plugin, like for instance, like reminders. It's just like, oh yeah, like, and then would it have the same feeling if it was an automated reminder? Probably not. But wouldn't it be interesting if it was just like, I love that list of like, here are the HSC activities. Yeah, screen right there. What is a member? So it's just like, oh yeah, I know that these are the things, and I check them off, and it's sort of like a game. It feels like a game. That's kind of what I log into the game, and then I like, oh, I check. Oh, I got this far in the game this month. I got this many points, or whatever. But I don't have to interact, and it feels very set. It's just like, oh yeah, I did it this month. I didn't do this month. I just like in a game, like at the soccer game, you did all this stuff right, and you got this many points, and you won or you lost, and you kind of know how you did, and you're like, oh, I want to do it a little different or better next time. Anyway, I can feel my brain starting to fail me.
Yeah. No, I mean, I think that I think you're speaking to it. I mean, I like the party analogy, and I like the soccer team analogy. I mean, you can be like a not a good soccer player, but if you're on the, But if you come to practice and you go to the games and you play as hard as you can and you try, then you're on the team,
Yeah.
Right. You do. Right. And somebody else could be like the best soccer player in the world, but if they like slough off practices, and they show up for games when they want to, then they're not on the team.
And those are like in the S3 world, those are called agreements. So it's like these are what's a member, or like you could call that like what are the member agreements, right?
Yeah.
These are the agreements, and it does, because we make these agreements, it's like, yeah, we are giving up something. And so that's sort of the value that we put in, and that at least theoretically, that like that value can stay and then can be distributed, because we're doing all these things.
Yeah. And I think Newman, I think in my mind, in this sort of like, to me, in the decentralized model, what like like doing the skill shares and putting that together, to me, in my mind, like what that might look like, right? And I'm not pooping on the skill shares. I mean, I think they're great, but again, it's it's not right. It's like I like that as a part of a bigger piece.
I just had a great visual. But
but to me, like like decentralized, what that means is like Newman is like, hey, I'm really excited about the skill shares. I want to keep that container going. To me, it's like go for it. Like you are now like the Skillshare circle lead, right? And so you would submit a proposal. So you'd say, okay, hey, I'm going to submit a proposal. It can be simple as say, I'm my proposal is that I'm going to be the lead facilitator of these skill shares, and I'm going to just make sure that they happen. And right, that we need other people, right? I need Rob to help, send the emails, and I need, maybe Zoe wants to come on. And for being the Skillshare lead and making, and what does that mean? Like, what's the deliverable? The deliverable is every month or something, there's going to be a Skillshare, blah, blah, blah. And for that, I receive, this amount of tokens.
Yeah.
And then the group looks, sort of goes over the proposal. We talk about it a little bit if we need to, and then vote on it. Okay, right. And then Newman, then you are, you're the Skillshare person. And that's like, and so that, to me, that's that decentralized model, like in action.
And then this brings me to what Saya was saying. It's just like, yeah, Rob is the founder. He can put that on his resume and blah, blah, blah. That's a value, like people are like, oh shit, this guy's run a community for this many years, doing all these things. And I mean, I'm personally not in this zone of like playing the like resume game, but for instance, back when I did sort of work professionally, my one sort of hang my hat on, like what I wrote down in my performance review right before they gave me a horrible one and I quit, was that I created basically a skill share, like a lunch talk, and I like created a season, and I contacted 10 people to give these 10 weekly or maybe monthly. I guess it was a semester. It was probably 10 different weekly talks during lunch, and it was funded, and we had lunch, and people came and talked, and it was, and I tried to be like a big shot. I did all this stuff. But the cool thing was, like that's like that project management and event coordinator, blah, blah, blah. That's a role in, that's a job, like facilitating meetings. Like that's a job. I wrote that randomly on my LinkedIn, and now like I people comment like, oh, so-and-so is looking for, online meeting facilitators.
It's a good idea.
It's not a huge value for me because I'm not really looking for a job, but for someone there. And that's what I mean by there is an opportunity here for, if you are playing that game, because it's not soccer, it's like, get a job, find gainful employment, et cetera, like, oh yeah. So my point being is like, we need to find the Venn diagram of like the value that HSC is generating, and then like there's a group of people that need that what it's generating. You know, it's like it's systems theory. It's just like there's an inflow and an outflow, and we want our outflow to like join up with those inflows. It's just like on the coordinate, you know, like there's people sending, receiving value. And HSC has this value generator and giving people the opportunity to practice, like what Basil was saying, like practice your passion. If you're passionate about this, you can do it, etc. And maybe what I think what Sai was also saying was that maybe Basil was that this works for a little while people can volunteer or work for those other forms of value. But eventually they need to level up because, you know, the title is valuable for a minute, but then you're like, oh, no, I need another form of value to sort of, you know, even if it's just to keep the game interesting, you know, it's just like, oh yeah, I did all the roles and, you know, what, you know, like you got to keep it, you know, variety maybe. Okay, that's another rant. I'm getting tired and I do have to like talk for the next, so I might cut out.
Yeah. But
Mhm.
I just to reflect, you know, you right, like I like what you said as far as like the value generator, you know,
Yeah.
like that's what, and I think that's what HSC is, and that's what we know. Like we're like, you know, the two of you, but the folks who are here understand the value that, you know, it's a great, you know, like you do, Newman, you have these great ways of visualizing these things. It's another way to sort of like, you know, speak to, you know, that idea of like what happens, you know, like the power of people coming together, you know, and like what you can scale, right? So we're generating this value, and we know that happens, you know, when you bring a bunch of people together and you know, collaborating with a good plan. And so I think that's what the people who are doing now, when we say, hey, we're building this, that's where we're at now. We're like starting to generate the value, you know, it's like the engine, and we're starting to like, you know, sort of having to get that motor going.
Mhm.
And right. And again, you know, I'm just riffing off of you, Newman, but it's like, you know, this is something, right? Like if you have a certain amount of people who are doing certain things, you know, on the team, then you're starting to then have that value generator
Yeah.
started up.
And and yeah. I last sort of thing, and thanks for letting me just sort of come in and blurt out some stuff. But I like this. I like the member agreements, and I would love to just like that as an app. It's just like there's an app, and I can make it with ChatGPT tonight. That just that just emails every. It's just like, do you want to play this game? And if you check yes, then you get an email, and it says, hey, what did you do this month? And you just check, or and then there's maybe it's a survey. Like this can be like a survey that gets sent out, and
Mm-hmm.
then I want a dashboard. Like also, like I want a milkshake. I want like my brain to stop hurting. But I also want like a dashboard where I log in and I see it's like, oh crap, what did I do last month? Damn, I did this. Well, oh, but I did, and then and I can see it change over time. Like that would be cool. Like I can see like a graph. I'm like, oh look, you did all this stuff.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
like, wouldn't that be cool? I know maybe just daydreaming, but I think for a community, and this is something for all communities, like all my communities, I want to be able to like, oh, what are the themes and topics, and what are my agreements? What am I doing? Uh, and then it allows me, like selfishly, to sort of, is it is it making value for me? Am I putting in what I'm, you know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah.
oh, well, of course, I need to do my agreements, or look back last month and say, oh, this was so cool last month when, Cy and I did that thing. How long ago was that? Was that in April? Was that in so and so?
Yeah.
When did Rob come and visit? Like, when was that? Like, I could look back and see, and then it's like, oh, that's the history and the sort of like what becomes my identity. Another one is images, like like taking pictures, and it's just like, um like making memories. Did I make a memory in HSC last month?
Mm.
Okay, I see my efficiency is going down. All right, I'm gonna get some water. You guys are the greatest. All right, I will. Yeah, I'll see you back on the Discord. Thanks for joining.
Yeah,
All right.
thanks, Newman.
Take care, Newman.
Bye.
Bye.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think it's I like it. I mean, I think it's really just, it's like um we're building it, If we want it, then we're building it.
Yeah.
And right, there's this other, sort of there's this other way, we could go. Again, it's like what are we trying to achieve and then how do we do it? We could say, oh, okay, well, let's go like look at, play around in these other, organizations who are trying to do something similar.
Yeah, I saw that little list you made or somebody made. That was cool.
Yeah,
See, I haven't looked at any of them up yet.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. No, and that's, right, like I don't know any that folks are doing like the exact, I don't know that I've seen where they're doing like the exact thing with as far as like the value exchange and like, tokenizing, value sharing and resource pooling, but they're doing some, there's some similar things, especially as, the agency thing. So I don't want to say like it has to be HSC,
Mm.
but it does feel, good to me to say like, what are, like to know what we're trying to do, and if it is this thing that we laid out the mission for, yeah,
Right.
then what is the plan and how, what is the plan? What are the goals? How are we achieving that? And then some of these, right. I think that's the questions to get answered. And then when those get answered, then there's, sort of the sort of next level things, which is, okay, well, what are we doing with the skill shares? What are we doing with the meeting times? How are we, yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So I don't know. What's your sense?
Oh, I just keep going back to like, I love talking about the ideas and the possibilities, but then by this time in the meeting, I'm like, okay, what are the action items? Who's going to do what next? When?
Good. Yeah.
That's where I tend to go. And, unfortunately, we don't have that many people here. And we have the person who does the most and the person who's clearly too busy for the next few months. So it's a little challenging to see what the action items are. For me, what I really liked that I just took initiative and like reminded people about Coordinape at the end of this past month. I was just like, I'm into it. I'll do it. I'll remind people. I'll be like a little cheerleader over here, So it's one thing to have that official role. It's another thing to just like have an impulse and do it. That's been working well for me. My impulse was to do a value exchange with Newman. Now I'm receiving from Nyla. So like I just keep just kind of going for what makes sense, like what I'm available to receive and what I'm available to offer.
Mm-hmm.
Uh yeah.
Yeah.
Um
Yeah. And I love that. See, I think just, I was thinking about the exchanges you were doing with Newman and with Nyla. Well, maybe not. I think what you were doing with Newman is interesting because I don't know that there's like, you know, I don't like there's a way where you're not necessarily earning tokens from each other for that, right? Because you're hooking
no,
up, it's not, yeah, it's sort of an equal exchange.
it was an equal exchange. The idea that especially Newman had is that we created a template that could have value for anyone else in the collective. So it was actually an equal exchange between us, but then potentially a contribution, potentially a give from the two of us. Not that we were needing to receive anything for it, but just like creating a model or creating something that we could teach, that we could then offer more clearly to people. And
Yeah.
he and I talked about circling back and like refining some of the documentation that we created, and then like having it actually be a very accessible resource. So that happened. Well, it's in process, I guess.
Yeah. See, that's awesome. I mean, I think that's a great example of like generating value, right? So you're coming
Yeah.
together and there's like this equal exchange. So it doesn't necessarily mean in that exchange that there's like tokens going back and forth, but
Right.
you're both getting something from it, you know?
Right.
So like, you know, maybe the vision, 100 years from now is that there aren't tokens, right? And everybody's, it's just it's a big organism of equal exchanges.
Right.
Um,
Right. Yeah. Yeah, totally. I mean, when I first saw the whole needs and offerings spreadsheet, that's kind of how I thought about it. I'm like, oh, if I want to receive something from someone, is there something reciprocally that I can offer them directly? It's just super simple when it works that way, you know? But it's a much more rich ecosystem when it doesn't work that way, when it goes to different points in the circle and it circulates.
Yeah. Yeah. But I like that that's right. You have that. So you both get something, right? So that's just sort of value that's been generated within the, just by the community, but then you've generated another kind of value, right? That can, your template.
Yep.
And then, right, when you put then the third piece is actually you probably will get tokens because in coordinate, right? Like you're gonna give Newman and vice versa some tip, some tip, part of your tip pool,
Right.
because you're like, oh
Yeah.
well, this person's been super helpful for me, right? So I think that's yeah, so I like that, in addition to just like Sai, I need, like I need help in this area of expertise,
Yeah.
please, here's
Yeah.
some, yeah.
Yeah.
Hmm.
My dream would be that at a community meeting like this, there are like 8 people, for example, who can ideally stay for a good chunk of the meeting. And then at some point in the meeting, we shift into like, okay, let's do the cooperative now. Everybody go and like update your needs and offerings, and everybody sort of put somewhere what you're committing to for the next cycle, like what roles you can step forward on. Or for me right now, I'm thinking like, how many of my friends can I invite to the next Skillshare? Not how many, but like, what if I extend myself and have an intention to invite 2 new people to come to a Skillshare and just check it out? That there would be a part in a meeting where those steps would just kind of naturally, not naturally, but would like be intrinsic to the time.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I agree. I mean, I think that's my dream as well, and, so, that this is also a question for people. I mean, you and I can talk about it now, but like, what do we do with the skill shares? And I was, messaging back and forth with Zoe yesterday, because she's up for doing it, next week. Yeah, I mean, I think that, I personally, I think, at this point should cut them either do 2 things, either like cut them to 1 a month, or like have more, have them as often as we want, but like move them to another time or another day.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think I think having like just 2 HSC community meetings a month, like it's hard to meet that dream that you just talked about,
Uh-huh.
you
Yeah.
know, and I don't know that like having that time, I don't know, like as the Skillshare is what's gonna like be the prime generator to, to bring about, start generating all this value.
Right. Right. Yeah. I mean, it could shift. It could be in a pivot kind of place. I think in the visioning process, I heard a lot of people appreciating the value of Skillshares. I think that like popped up quite repeatedly in the visioning process. But if people aren't showing up both in offering them and attending them in reality, then it's not the best use of time and resource.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that's where we're at. Like there isn't,
Yeah.
isn't anybody signed up, for any skill shares, beyond next week
Okay.
with Zoe. Right, and people haven't been showing up. I that doesn't mean that they're not valuable and that people don't appreciate them, and the people who
I
show
know.
up don't
I know.
appreciate them, the people who do
Yeah.
them, right?
Yeah.
So I think that you know, to me, they are like one part, of the many, many, many different types of,
Yeah.
of value.
Yeah. It's a good way to build community so that we know each other, so that we feel um known to each other, and so that we also feel maybe a sense of accountability, but not such a not like in a punitive or like heavy way, but more like knowing that it's not an anonymous online thing with a member portal and you never see anybody and you don't hear their voice and you don't know what they are, what they really have to offer besides what they wrote down on their whole person resume, like that
Yeah,
you have a felt sense of who people are. I think the skill shares help with that,
yeah,
you know,
yeah,
right.
yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, I just think that I think that there wants to be, like a match, that sort of energy exchange. There wants to be a match of like the people who are, like the desire for them, and then the creation of them.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah, and right, like I mean, I think it's been a great, sort of run, and it
Oh, yeah.
has helped everybody,
Yeah.
to like do, all the things that you said.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, and right, and they can still, right, again, this in this decentralized way. If somebody's like, no, I like Skillshares and I want them, I think we should still keep having them every 2 weeks. It's like then that person, can
Yeah.
like be that lead facilitator of them.
Yeah. Right.
Um,
Right. And again, it can be something that grows, like you said, if energy is put into it. If it's not just like, hey, HSC, it'd be great if you guys want to come to the Skillshare next week, but invite 2 friends, or who are like 3 people you could forward the invite to, and that, like, I think that worked well for the social media one sometimes because it's such a hot topic that like people are really interested in it. And so people showed up who I'd never seen before.
yeah, well, most of the people who showed up there are Zoe's,
Okay.
people.
Okay.
Yeah,
Cool.
yeah, yeah. I think that there's another, there's a point also where there is like, no matter what, it takes like group energy, like that's group resources. Like we have, just
Yeah.
a certain amount of resources, and so like it does take a good amount of, our group resources now. Maybe someday it doesn't take, it takes a smaller and smaller percentage to do the same thing, facilitate those.
Right.
But right now it
Right.
does take a good amount. And so the amount of resources, including just everyone's time, that it's been taking to facilitate those, gets taken away from like facilitating the creation of the rest of it, and the action items and
Right.
so I think it is a matter of like where our resources, best spent given what we're trying to achieve.
Yeah. Sorry, I'm a little distracted. I think my neighbor is marching around out here.
Oh,
I'm pretty sure it's not a bear.
okay. Oh, yeah, yeah. Who knows? Sometimes isn't this the time that the bears, walk around with the cubs?
Yeah. Yeah, that would be exciting.
It is exciting. I know. It's like, I've been at, yeah, that houses where that happened, where it's like we're there, it's on the bear trail.
The trail. Yeah, I don't know that I am. I've lived places like that. I don't think I'm on the regular route at this spot. Yeah, could happen. It could happen. Yeah. All right. Well, I'm kind of inclined to like wrap up soon and move on. I know it's a little early, but with just the two of us, it feels a little awkward to make much progress.
Yeah, I think it's
I think the
yeah,
two of us
yeah.
are awesome, but
But
only
we
two voices out of many in a cooperative. So,
yeah, yeah. No, I agree. Yeah. This but I think that we've got, like there was a lot of good input, today. And I mean, I
yeah,
don't know if we made like the whole decision, but it sounds, I mean, yeah, maybe we can just kind of like recap and then it
sure.
sounds to me like, you know, at least the impression I'm getting is that what we want to achieve, is to keep is to this idea of the value sharing, the value bank cooperative.
Yeah. Yeah. I think there's interest in the agency thing too. And like you said, if we have more meetings as a cooperative, we can make more headway in structuring both of those things.
Yeah,
If we only work on it, like you said, every couple weeks, then it's pretty slow. Or we form smaller working groups who meet more often, or at a meeting where there's like 6 people, we split off into 2 breakout rooms and one group works on the cooperative token value exchange and the other group spends some time working on the agency idea. There's different ways to make it,
yeah,
to give it some more movement.
yeah, yeah. I mean, my working theory, had been, keep creating the value bank, and then like naturally in a way that I think you are directly talking to, that naturally sort of organic way, the services agency would just
Okay.
would move into that. But there's been discussion lately, about that, the services agency, and I think it was. So I think it was helpful for me at least to sort of say, hey, these are like the two different pieces. This is where they come
Yeah.
together,
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
yeah. But I mean, so given that, right? I mean, I think that, the sense that I got was that, um, we go forward. The sense that I got was that people like that idea of like starting to decide like what are the member agreements.
Yeah, definitely.
And I think if you do that, I think at a certain point, I think that really makes a big difference.
Yeah.
Because because if you're a member, that means you are a person is starting to generate that value. That's part of what you're doing.
Yeah.
What are the member agreements, right? And then it also sort of very clearly delineates. It's like, hey, I'm I'm involved from the sidelines and I'm cheering you on, or like I'm on the team. And that may change for some, like somebody like month to month, we'd have to figure out how that works. But to just say like, hey, now you are, you're either on the team or you're not.
Mhm.
If you are, then you have these responsibilities.
Yep.
Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, I
And then
love
I
it.
think the last piece, like you're saying, I mean, what I would propose is to, if people want to continue to do the skill shares, what I would propose is like to do them, once a month and then have the rest of them the meetings where, and we can like really dig into this, and make some headway.
Yeah. Yep. That sounds good.
Cool. All right. Any action items for us, or does that pretty much sound like it?
Um, I was thinking that I would like to write like a paragraph or two for the next thing, email. Kind of about that, my approach to like stepping in and like just doing stuff when I have the initiative to do it. Like
Yeah.
as an encouragement for people, as like a little, as like my initiative to encourage people to just take initiative and just like notice where you feel inspired, like where you feel energized, and like just do a small thing. Doesn't have to be a big thing, just do a small thing. Um that's that's an idea I had that I feel moved towards. It would be like a little bit of a recap of this meeting, but with that particular piece.
That'd be awesome.
Okay.
It sounds like something that came up for me actually as an idea that I put in my, email idea list, which was like, what do we mean by decentralized? What does a decentralized organization actually look like? And it is
Right.
kind of what I just like gave the example with of Newman today. It's like somebody just says, hey, I like these skill shares, I want them to continue,
Right.
and then the folks, and here's my proposal, and then everybody's like, great,
Right.
take the lead, what do you need from us?
Right. Awesome.
Um,
Moving things over.
And so, yeah, maybe that's, we can write, you can write the whole thing, or we can, write,
I'll
you
write
can write a chunk from you and a chunk from me, on like, what is it,
Okay.
whatever we just, decentralized, look like, or, whatever, however you want to say it, pitch in when you can. But I think I think it's a huge, I love it. I think it's a huge piece. And I think that even though you talk about it, it sort of seems obvious, or maybe it doesn't seem to me, but it's a big mindset shift. Because I think the regular way we are is like, hey, I've got an idea. I'm gonna just run that up. Hey, this is an idea I have for you, and then you take it and you figure it out.
Right.
But in this way, it's like, hey, I've got an idea. Awesome, love it. Go do it.
Right.
And here, you need what resources do you need?
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Definitely. Cool. All right. Great.
All
Will
right.
do.
Thanks.
Good to
Thanks.
see you.
And actually,
Yay.
I have to tell you this. It's a funny story, so I'll leave it on recording. But remember when you lost last week when you were when you lost all the stuff on the email? I know.
Yeah. So annoying. Yeah.
I know that was frustrating, but I think I figured out why. So you kind of you took one for the team, as it were. I put in the like our email draft, I had put in this little paragraph about like reminding people that they could change their email preferences.
Yeah.
Basil's back. And it didn't actually make it in to the email. And I didn't notice that it didn't make it in. And if I noticed it, I probably would have added it. Or said, hey, can you drop this in? And then when I got the email, I realized that the wrong link was in that change your preferences. The wrong link was in there, and it was a link that like was something totally different, and it didn't even work. And so there's some way where I think if that hadn't been lost, then that note would have gone in, and maybe people would have gone to it, and it would have been wonky. And so maybe that's what happened. The only way to save us.
Maybe.
Maybe.
I don't know. I just gotta try to save my work more often, I guess. I thought I was, but
Yeah, I don't know. But yeah, with that in mind, this week, what's that?
Well, it's like I said to you that day, it's the gift of my excellent short-term memory that I could pretty much recreate everything I had just done. It was faster than the first time I created the email. So
Yeah. All right, well, I'll let you go. I'll chat with Basil,
to
but
wrap up. Yeah, I'm gonna get going.
yeah, thanks, Sai. It's great to have you.
All right, good to see you. Bye.
Hi. Basil, hi. I'm still recording. Any HSC or I can recap you on the rest of what we talked about.
Yeah, did you make any decisions?
I don't know that we made, I mean, I have a sense. I don't know that we made any like sort of hard group decisions, but basically, Sai and I kind of recapped. I think, number one, it seems like, sounds like what people, at this point are trying to, want to achieve for the next little while is, this value bank idea, and want to, pursue that, and sort of, not like go, not like have, go for the services agencies as far as like, hey, that's what we're going to like go for as a group now, but more like assuming that'll happen or organically. So that's what I'm hearing, number one. Number two, I think as far as like how to do it, I do think people like that, like the next steps is like having these member agreements. you know, Newman really, liked that, and was sort of relaying it to like a team, a soccer team, and basically saying like, okay, these are the, if you're on the soccer team, then these are like the things that you do, and that you're responsible for, and if you don't do them, then you're not on the team. And so, and then the idea of like really this being, like what we're trying to build, we're the people who are like having to generate the value. It's like a value generator, and right now, we're the ones who are having to sort of like crank up the engine. And the last thing was about skill shares. My proposal is that if people still want to have skill shares, that we do them once a month. And if folks want to have them, more often now, then we do them like on another day, or another time. But that, like the level of resources that go into them, I don't think is being matched by like the attendance that's coming now. So I think it's something that we know now is like we like and how to facilitate, but that let's put more resources into sort of like getting these member agreements kicked up and getting the actual value exchange going, and how we're doing that. So yeah.
Okay, cool. Yeah. Yeah. So did you get so that small sample size, but the why do they, what are they looking out of the value bank for? Did Saya elaborate on like why she likes the value bank, or what it is she's?
I don't know that the discussion was so much the why today. I think the why was like kind of, the last, several months, which was like, why are we doing this? Like sort of like the why is kind of laid out in those purpose and mission and vision statements, and and in all of our discussions around that. So it felt like today was more like the what, and then like the how.
Right. Okay. So you're confident that there's a problem that needs solving, and the value bank is the solution, or the
I'm
hypothesis.
confident that there's a problem that needs solving, and I feel like the value bank is a good possible solution. I don't know that that's like that is I can't say that's the solution, but I think it's a very good attempt, at a solution to a difficult, problem. And it may just be one of, maybe one of various solutions, I don't know that it's like the solution.
Yeah, I need to dig up. There's a tribe down in Ecuador that, or Peru or somewhere, that I thought has some sort of value banking system that's not obviously technical. To see what that cultural solution is, to see if we can learn from that. Yeah, I know there's been like time banks and stuff that have been started around the world.
Mm-hmm.
But I was under the impression that those like weren't working perfectly.
No, I mean, I've been involved with them. I like them, but I don't think that they don't seem to grow, large enough to get any adoption. Yeah, I mean, I think that the challenge, I think there's two main challenges with just just a, straight time bank. Number one is that there's only, you know, only so many people, so many different like skill sets are going to feel drawn to participate. You know, I think that folks with skill sets that can get, paid a good amount of money they'd rather just pay money, rather than, go and, and participate in a time bank. Hopefully like the idea of like, of coordinate, is a way to solve that problem. And like the expertise framework, is a way to solve that problem. I think that problem needs to get solved by creating more subtlety and accounting for the complexity of the different kinds of value and what people are doing, what people are bringing, how we value them. I think that's number one. I think number two is that it's there's you're not pooling any resources. You're leaving a lot of value on the table, because it's like, I come to you, we exchange that hour, we separate, and that's it. Yeah, maybe I've learned something or you've learned something, but that's it. There's not like a resource pool that builds and grows, and there's not like, I don't know that there's the same sort of opportunity for group synergy, because there's a way, and I think with this value bank idea where like, yeah, I've got my tokens, but there's also this community pool that we're all putting into, and then we're drawing out of, and we're getting interest off of.
That's the yeah, but that needs like liquidity in there somewhere. There needs to be liquidity. So that's the issue. So like for me, the value of these DAO-based co-ops structures of the future is that when I am a member of a co-op, then maybe I pay my minimum dues that help to sort of like fund sort of the base admin of the co-op, right? And then the work that I do for the co-op, in my case, it'd be like a media co-op, or it'd be doing media services. And then I'm doing media jobs through the co-op. And then a piece of my economy is staying with the co-op to grow the value of the co-op. But then at the same time, by my doing services, I'm getting tokens from the co-op when I'm doing this value, even though I'm getting cash as well, that's like, IRS, tax reported, is 1099 income. Then I'm also getting more token points in the co-op based upon my services provided which is or the amount of my services that's going to the co-op at least is then coming back to me. It's not just coming off the top of my income as like a percentage fee, like a take, like we're your agency and we're taking 15% of all your economy. No, it's not like that. It's like we're taking 15% of your economy, but we're giving you that value in shares of the co-op. And then at the end of the year, on the end of a period, then the profits left in the co-op that are pulled from many different service provisions for different types of stuff in a holistic system, then that gets then dispersed as dividends, legal dividends, non-taxed dividends, to the co-op members. So the co-op doesn't have to pay taxes on that economy, on that profit, before it's been dispersed to its members. The members have to report it and pay relevant jurisdictional taxes, but the co-op itself does not have to pay U.S. federal taxes, because that's as an LCA. When you're registered as an LCA, then you can distribute dividends to working members without paying taxes on it before it goes to the members.
Yeah.
And then the members have to report that. The
Well, I
only,
get it. I mean, I get, it's a worker-owned co-op, yeah, I mean, I get the model. And I mean, I think yeah, I mean, really today, I think that my goal, what I was trying, coming here was saying like, there's that model, there's the value bank model. I think, as folks were saying, I think that they play into each other, but I'm coming here today saying like, folks, what do you want to concentrate on? You know?
I'm just trying to see like how does the non-cash value bank help people like meet their overheads, their costs?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think that I think there does need to be cash that's going into it.
So then that's the question is what is the business model for HSC to receive the cash into its treasury?
Yeah. I mean, I think that's where it starts to turn into that agency, right? I think that's where these threads come, because if I want, to solicit, 3 hours of Basil's time, and either A, I don't have the tokens to do that, or B, Basil's already met his time agreements for the month, then C, I need to pay Basil. And if I'm paying Basil, then that's money coming in, right? And so that payment can happen within the context of the internal value bank co-op, right? Because we're wanting to, we can also be charging memberships. I think we should at a certain point. So everybody's putting in and pulling in cash, right? That's for them anyways. But then as soon as like people start paying for services, as soon as that starts to happen, then that starts to then trickle into, this agency.
So then,
And as soon as like I'm doing a job with, right, and I've got to do holistic systems anyways, right? So as soon as I do a job with, like I'm like a client that comes in, I do a job, whatever, with Saya, like I'm not paying Saya as an independent contractor. Like Saya is coming in, like that's like coming into this holistic systems co-op, right? So anybody I work with, it's come into this DAO based co-op.
and then who's paying them? The co-op.
Well, the client, in that case, the client is paying us, right? And we are fractionalizing our work. So, so that's what personally what I'm doing, because what I'm saying is I'm not going to work with people in a traditional way. Meaning like somebody just comes on and they're an independent contractor and I tell them, you make this much, and and I do all the coordinating and then you go. Like, that's not interesting to me. I'll just do the job myself, otherwise, or I won't do the job. So
Right.
so that's but that's just another way that like the agency part gets kind of developed, I would say.
Yeah. I guess when I first came to you, I was already developing the agency, but the vision for that was that it would have a human layer to handle the humans, so that they can move around freely, and participate in different jobs that the agency brings in or not. And then the agency, D Studio would have its focuses, but then there would be maybe other agencies with similar different focuses that are like woven in, so that then the humans who are members of HSC can then provide services for the different like revenue gathering efforts and non-revenue gathering efforts.
Yeah.
So then like hopefully like a harmony could be found, like a balance where like people are are bringing in what they need, and they're doing what they want at the same time. And hopefully that's all the same, but at least there's like a balance that
Yeah,
there's
yeah.
the
I mean,
ability.
that's the dream, you know. Yeah, that's still very much the vision, and you know, for me.
And when there's too many people, like too many editors or photographers or whatever in the co-op, where and out of that pool, there's always going to be the best or the top core, so then like developing like a system, this is down the road, but developing a system to like adequately support those sort of non-experts or like lower tier skill level, um, without the superstars um, taking it all for themselves. You know what I mean?
Well,
So
totally, I know what you mean. Yeah,
protocol to like spread out the wealth.
yeah. And yeah, I'm just trying to bring in how do we get there? You know, what are the steps now? And I think that's what we're talking about today. What are the steps now? What do we do now with the people that we have here?
Right.
Because I think yeah, like I think, we're totally aligned, on the long-term vision, and that is, and what that is. But I think, yeah,
Yeah. Well, what Saya said
and,
is,
and even before you get to that bigger agency, it's really like, the interplay. For me, it's like, well, how does HSC just, facilitate its own work?
mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's not in a centralized manner. So
Yeah.
yeah.
All right. Cool. Okay. Yeah, you can stop the recording. We're good for that.
Okay. Bye, people. Bye, whoever's still here.